Welcome back to the Law Stash channel. My name is Anton Vieltsin and I'm a criminal defense attorney in the Southern District of California. In this video, we'll be discussing a federal statute dealing with murder for hire. And specifically, we're going to discuss the intent to pay, which is required under the statute. In this video, we'll be discussing a Ninth Circuit case, United States versus David Phillips. And this case deals with a murder for hire statute under federal law. As always, I'm going to first discuss with you the facts of the case, and then we're going to talk about the law. So here's what happened. Mr. Phillips owned NKP Medical, which was a marketing agency targeting doctors, pharmacists, chiropractors, and so on. Basically medical professionals. At some point, he hires Mr. Fruchter. And the idea was for this individual to first work for Mr. Phillips, but then later become a co-owner of NKP. Instead, they had disagreements and they split up. Mr. Fruchter opened a Growth Med, which was a competing agency doing essentially the same type of business. Now, because of the competing businesses now, they had more disagreements and there were heated exchanges verbally and by text message between the two men. At some point, Mr. Phillips even told Mr. Fruchter to be careful, that he is threatening him because they're now a competing business. Mr. Phillips also liked going to a local bar where he met David Suiaunoa, who was a bouncer there. At some point they became friendly and Mr. Suiaunoa asked for a loan. It was a $30,000 loan for a marijuana grow house that Mr. Suiaunoa wanted to open. Well, the problem is Mr. Suiaunoa was not a good businessman. So instead of using the $30,000 for the house, for the grow house, he essentially lost the money. He used $10,000 of that $30,000 on his own personal expenses and sort of squandered the money. So at some point, Mr. Phillips promises Mr. Suiaunoa to forgive the loan. He doesn't have to pay it back as long as he murders Mr. Fruchter. Mr. Suiaunoa gets arrested on unrelated charges. Essentially possession of meth for sale. He cooperates with law enforcement and tells them about this agreement between him and Mr. Phillips. Here's what the agents do. They decide to basically stage the death of Mr. Fruchter and make sure that Mr. Phillips believes that this murder for hire actually takes place. So they do the fake murder. He sends the photos to Mr. Phillips, and the idea here was that Mr. Phillips believes that there was a murder happening and Mr. Fruchter is now killed. Under 18 U.S.C. 1958, this is our murder for hire statute. In order to be convicted under the statute, Mr. Suiaunoa should have received anything of pecuniary value, basically economic advantage. Under this statute, Mr. Suiaunoa needs to receive some kind of economic advantage, something of benefit for him, hence for hire. So under United States versus Ritter, there has to be an intent to pay. And in this case, in Mr. Ritter's case, there was a $70 given to an individual to build a pipe bomb. In Ritter, the court said that that was not enough of economic advantage. The person did not know that that $70 would be used to kill other people. He essentially got $70 just to build the pipe bomb. In United States versus Wickler, the court said that a revenge murder also doesn't fit under murder for hire statute. under 1958. In that case, we had a husband killing his wife's ex-husband with the idea that his wife will receive life insurance money after the ex-husband's death. The problem is that the individual, the husband, is not going to receive that money. And there's not a for sure instance that the wife would even receive that money. So again, the revenge murder does not fit under the murder for hire 1958 statute. Those are our two examples. In this case, Mr. Phillips actually makes an interesting argument. He says that the unenforceable debt cannot satisfy the pecuniary value. What is he trying to say here? He says here that under contract law, the $30,000 that he would have forgiven and told Mr. Suiaunoa not to pay back, well, Mr. Suiaunoa never had to pay it back because under the law, marijuana grow house is an illegal operation, meaning that that whole contract was unenforceable anyway. Mr. Suiaunoa never needed to pay that money back. Just because he would be relieved from the debt, he still gets no economic benefit because, like I said, he doesn't have to pay it back under the law because this is an illegal contract. So the argument that Mr. Phillips makes is slightly different than what Ritter and the other cases that we've seen before. Here's what the Ninth Circuit says. When we're talking about economic benefit, first of all, it encompasses more things than just money. Of course, we're talking about currency, but it could be drugs, it could be weapons, or anything else of monetary value. Second, under the statute, we don't have to focus on contract law. This is a murder for hire. We're dealing with individuals who are criminals, who are trying to kill someone. And so we don't have to focus on contract law. As long as there's a clear mutual agreement with Mr. Phillips and Mr. Suiaunoa, that's enough, even though the $30,000 was an illegal contract. What we heard in the news a couple of years ago is the phrase quid pro quo, which is what the court says is needed in this statute, in the murder for hire statute under 1958. And finally, the court actually quotes The Godfather. In The Godfather, Don Corleone says that even though there's no honor among thieves, there's still obligations. And as long as we have that obligation that you will forgive the debt as long as you kill, that's enough for murder for hire. I hope you enjoyed this video. Go ahead and look up that video of The Godfather. You can look it up on YouTube, that clip. It's a good one. And if you enjoyed this video, please click like and subscribe. Thanks for watching.